What?
What dear what?
I don't know why you're asking me what. I thought we were pausing and then we were going to start the.
Why are you looking? Why are you looking at me weird though?
I'm looking at you the same way I always look at you.
I feel like you got a little judgment in your eyes. It feels like you got like maybe I shouldn't be trusted.
I mean, never. You should never be trusted. I've grown up with you. I know whether or not.
I mean,
you
more
should be
so
trusted.
than normal is what I'm saying. Like maybe I'll burn down the barn, or maybe I'll incite war, and I need to be watched. Feels like you're feeling that way.
Again, I've known you my whole. I don't know why you would think I don't.
Well, maybe
trust
you're
you.
a little suspect as well. So that's all I'm saying.
How am I suspect?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't dare point out things that are right there. But no, I wouldn't do anything like that. I'd never.
Things right. My general presence.
I mean, in your general vicinity.
My congenial nature, my willingness to compromise, my always strong effort to see the other side's perspective, all that kind of stuff.
I was talking more about your powder blue tie, but other than that, yes, all the other things. But like before we get too far down this rabbit hole,
it's a good looking tie though, right?
It looks.
Like it?
I didn't know you were a Chargers fan, but anyway, you want to jump into this episode or
this motherfucker? Yeah, I think we could, and I think we should before that conversation goes any further.
Oh my goodness! Let me adjust my mic even more vigorously than you did.
On today's episode, we are talking in the Culture Corner, the Alex Jones trial and some interesting lessons to take away from that. And Epstein did not kill himself. We're talking FBI Watchlist, which David and I may or may not be on. You know, we'll see. Why. We'll talk about the list and then you decide. You know, what's it? We bring the facts, you decide. That's what we're going with. And then in the main part of episode 107, we are talking about the recent FBI raid on Trump's private residence at Mar-a-Lago in our home state of Florida, because nothing weird ever happens in Florida.
Oh, I thought we were going to Kansas again.
Well, you know, as we said in last week's episode, we know how to pick a state to live in.
Nice and tumultuous.
So with that being said, David, you completely and utterly trustworthy person who I have known and cherished his friendship for all the years of my life.
And have no radical dispositions one way or another.
Not at all.
We should jump into this episode.
All right, let's do it. But like safely, not radically.
Let's dip a toe into this episode.
Let's go. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 107, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/107. You can find the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and you can link up with us on our other socials, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Again, as per our video guy, we have a Bitcoin link now down in the description if you're watching this on video.
Who will remain nameless.
Exactly. And so if you would like to donate through the podcast via Bitcoin, you now have that option. And it's always appreciated, and we're very grateful for your support. David, topic numero uno.
Please.
You ready for it?
That's topic number one for all of our American listeners.
English-speaking listeners. Is Culture Corner, and we're talking about the Alex Jones trial.
Well, isn't he a big piece of shit that should be hung up by his toes until he's dead?
Yeah, I think that's the allowable opinion on this subject.
Okay. Good. Glad I'm got my finger on the pulse of Americana.
Yeah, any sort of deviation off that center in terms of the narrative, whenever you hear the word or the name Alex Jones, deviation off of that is not acceptable. You are kicked right out of polite society. So, David, let's do our best to get kicked out of polite society.
Please. I mean, I didn't belong there anyway. Let's be honest with ourselves.
So,
They're turning the fucking frogs gay.
As we record...
Explain Terror 7! Anyway, sorry.
And that's not even the worst one.
Nope.
So as we sit here in the second week of August 2022, I believe it's either a week or 2 weeks have gone by since Alex Jones' defamation trial ended. And I think he was awarded, the families were awarded somewhere around like $3 million, $4 million, something like that, of damages from Alex Jones for the specific claim that the Sandy Hook massacre was a false flag. It was a hoax. It never happened.
Can I put a pause on that?
They were crisis actors. That's the general opinion that he's on trial.
How much does CNN, Fox News, and all the other MSNBC and all the other news broadcasters that made multitudes of money covering said stories, how much did they have to pay the families when they misrepresented certain things and just made a boatload of profits off of covering this story and basically making money off of blood? How much did they have to pay out?
Oh, yeah. Round it down.
Please.
Carry the one. $0.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird that a fucking offshoot InfoWars YouTube channel-based fucking guy has to pay $3 million and CNN had to pay $0. But they covered it for at least multiple weeks, right?
Yeah, but David, don't you understand? It's his fault for saying the words. He said the no-no words, David.
I'm sorry. False flag.
Now, here's the thing. And I know when you come to WMD podcast, because you see this all the time, is that mutually, what are posited to you as mutually exclusive opinions can be held in common without contradiction. So one can say, I have empathy for the Sandy Hook families whose feelings were hurt, they were caused trauma, whatever, by Alex Jones's statements. Okay, you can still have empathy for them and say, bro, that wasn't cool to say. And you can also hold the opinion that a guy is getting railroaded. Not only is he getting railroaded personally, but as David was pointing out, there's a lot of other people got rich off of it and didn't have to pay a dime. But even more fundamentally important than that is this. Think of all the manufactured outrage around what Alex Jones did, which, again, turns out to be substantially hurt feelings. Okay? That's what he did. There's a lot of politicians and bureaucrats who over the years have, lied about weapons of mass destruction, which cost the American people somewhere around $1 trillion, tens of thousands of American military personnel's lives. Oh, and the millions of civilians that were either starved or bombed out of existence all throughout the Middle East.
They don't exist. Obviously, when you bomb a fucking elementary school over there, it's not an actual child. It was a Taliban harbor for guns or whatever the fuck they're telling you why they did it. That's because we are all heart in this country.
That's right. Always the good guys.
Never doing anything wrong.
So all we're saying is, everybody, your priorities are showing. As reprehensible as what Alex did, when you compare the damage between him lying about Sandy Hook or the American regime lying about weapons of mass destruction, the scales of justice seem pretty unbalanced there.
All I'm saying is, he's an easy target.
Yeah.
He's flamboyant. He's over the top. He's called, like I said, with my general impression of him, he said they're turning the frogs gay, which at face value sounds ridiculous. Sounds like something you shouldn't really be concerned with. But he also backed it up with information that said that the water that they're feeding to our children is the same water that turned amphibious creatures from a genetic female into a genetic male and vice versa. It's oh, shit. And he had the evidence to back it up with, studies and stuff like that. Which is, if you follow the science like we all do, Dane, is discreditable at the least, right?
Listen, if I could Cliff Notes this section and this entire episode of WMD Podcast, I would say, when you're told to be mad at somebody or a group of people, notice who you're always told to get mad at versus who you're not. Right? Alex Jones, you're told to get mad at. No matter what he did, no matter how bad it was, no matter how much societal, in addition to individual destruction he caused, versus who you're just like, whoopsie daisies, I guess we lied about WMDs. Not about this being the greatest podcast
only
on
cost
earth.
us to get into a 20-year war. Whoops.
Yeah.
Let's not investigate that at all.
Notice that the one who you're told to be mad at deviates from the regime's narratives. He says something that's not approved by the people in power. But when the people in power do stuff like lie about weapons of mass destruction, don't worry about it, folks. That's just, your humble public servants trying their best and accidentally getting it wrong.
It's just us tinkering with the brink of human annihilation. That's all we're doing. Just pissing people off with nukes. That's all it is.
Yeah, no big.
But we definitely need to protect feelings again.
So, with that being said, David.
Sir.
I want you to know two things.
I feel like you need me to know more, but I can add two things.
For purposes of this segment, I want you to know two things.
Okay.
I want you to know that Epstein didn't kill himself.
I think I've studied that enough, yes.
And I want you to know that you are probably a violent extremist.
Well, haven't we already known that just being a part of this podcast?
I'm pretty sure. If we're not on a watch list somewhere already.
We're sitting in a room. We're clearly violent with cameras on us and lights. And we just had to fix all the lining of the, yep, we're definitely violent.
Putting the way we see it out into the court of public opinion, completely unarmed and ready for the slings and throws of 1,000 people that disagree with everything that we have to say. We are terrible people, David.
Well, I already knew that. I felt that my entire life, actually.
So there's actually official government documentation of how terrible we are.
Oh, shit.
You're going to find out to learn.
Oh, my God. I finally have verification. Thank you so much.
So I believe it came out in late July or early August, but it was a Project Veritas, friends of the show. Not actually like we know anybody over there, but we have covered them favorably before. And
we might know people.
I should definitely know those episode numbers, but I don't, so we'll link them below. But go back to those other episodes where Project Veritas provided other important information to the people before anybody on mainstream media did. So a whistleblower within the FBI leaked an internal document. This document was never intended to go outside the FBI. It was basically give it to all the agents and staff as like training material. So this wasn't supposed to come out to the general public, but thanks to the whistleblower, it did. And the bulletin, or the unclassified enforcement of sensitive FBI internal use only, is what the document's labeled. It's titled Militia Violent Extremism. And then it gives a summary about the rise of ideological extremism and how terrible it is. And here's how you can spot it in the wild.
They don't say what we're saying.
That's what
they
this
disagree
document
with
says.
Us. They ask questions like a fucking asshole.
So, of these symbols, and when David and I saw this, we're like, bro, we're on like over 50% of these lists. So, like,
hence the pre-rolls.
We're definitely in multiple folders.
We're definitely
up
guessing
in DC.
each other. Which one of us is the terrorist?
So, some of the symbols include the Punisher skull.
Ooh.
Oh, you know that thing that a lot of cops have seen on, or have been like photographed, like have engraved into the side of their gun.
So now you don't have to be black to be pulled over. You have to be black or have the Punisher skull on you. Now you're probable cause. Now we can pull you over. Maybe you got drugs. Maybe you got this. Maybe you got that. Maybe you got a gun you're not supposed to have.
Now, the next symbol or imagery is 2A, Second Amendment. Anything showing support for the Second Amendment or a well-regulated militia or anything like that. Anything to do with the text or intent or meaning of the Second Amendment. That will land you on the FBI's list.
Heaven forbid we stand up for the laws of this country that will get you in a gulag for not supporting this country. Wait, what? Hold on. Can you explain that for me one more time, Dane? I'm a little crossed here.
Anybody Second Amendment sympathetic.
if I support the rules that this country was based on, I consequently go against what this country is trying to do?
Oh, yeah. By the way, those rules, which were written explicitly for the government to constrain its power, not to constrain yours. Yeah, those rules.
So if I were to question...
that we all agreed to live by and never voted on to change yet.
So if I were to question why they were questioning my support of the government's doctrine that made the government the government, that's a real... It feels like we're going like this. It feels like we're not going in the right direction here.
Yes, and there's a lot more symbols on this thing, and we're going to have to move through them quicker than this.
Oh, no.
So the Ancapistan flag, any sort of principled devotion or ideology that says that the free market can do better what government can do in all forms and sectors. So there's no reason for government, and we can organize ourselves peacefully and voluntarily. Now, as rainbows and unicorn and fairy dust as that may sound to many of you, there's nowhere in that description of anarcho-capitalism, which is what it actually is there any sort of advocacy for violence. Now, anarchists in the past, at the turn of the 20th century, that were more leftists in nature, they did throw bombs and advocate for violence and all that kind of stuff. But ANCAPs today, which are only anarchists in the sense that they don't think government is legitimate, but they're capitalists, so not on the left, no room for violence. But the FBI says otherwise. Any sort of warrior culture imagery. So basically, the Michigan State Spartans are a bunch of terrorist football players because they have the Spartan helmet on their uniform.
Gonna have to cancel the movie 300. Can't have that.
Nope.
But here's the thing, Dane. When was the last time the government helped you make your grocery list? When was the last time your government set aside time on your schedule to, clean your car, to wash it? When was the last time that your government told you when to pick up your kids from soccer practice? It feels like you do all that without the government. And that feels like a part of your normal life, right?
Yeah.
So why would you need them in your life? Other than just to, protect you from foreign affairs. And,
yeah. Listen,
I
if there's one thing I know about the government is I know that they are always truthful, honest, and just humble public servants trying to do the best for all of us.
They're just trying to do the best they can.
And mistakes happen, right?
Of course.
Mistakes that almost lead the entire globe to nuclear annihilation. Once every 30 to 50 years.
You might mess up accounting for a day. It's the same thing.
Did you know this is a true story without going too far? And maybe this is the Epstein moment.
Please.
Did you know that Richard Nixon once got so drunk that he ordered a nuclear strike on North Korea, which was not carried out?
It's pretty American. I gotta tell you, it's pretty fucking American. It's like, fuck those guys. You know what? They don't respect me.
And listen, when he woke up and he was sober, he realized it was, and he called it off. So.
And then everyone's like, we got it. We know. You were crying, you were talking about your family, and then you said to nuclear Korea.
David,
we get it. Tequila's a motherfucker. We get it.
Listen,
Nixon.
When anybody who's not immediate friends or family that like and support the podcast say, oh, you guys got a podcast, and there's that implicit thing like you guys are going to fail like everybody else. Listen, I want you to remember,
failure.
David, I want you to know
yes.
that no matter how bad we screw up on this podcast,
North Korea. Take that to the bank.
Which may or may not have something to do with David and I's proximity to power. So, yeah, we're definitely the ones you should be worried about.
I would definitely have done that. You know what? That fucking Ho Chi Minh stared at me wrong. Let's start a war with him. Kill a bunch of 18-year-olds.
Okay.
David went real for a second. Sorry, let's skip over that.
Sorry, man. I'm trying to get through this bulletin.
I get it.
This episode's taking too long.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Any sort of Mullen Lob, come and take it sort of imagery.
I don't know what the fuck that was.
Well, okay. So it was in 300. They didn't actually speak ancient Greek. But Mullen Lob stands for come and take them. essentially. Xerxes was coming in and said, lay down your spears, and the Spartans sent back a reply that said, come and take them. So that's where it started. That's the Molon Labe. That's the warrior imagery.
This is Sparta! Right, yes.
Yes, that mentality, that refusing to kneel to power. That's essentially what it's standing for. So that, any sort of come and take it imagery that has been popular in Second Amendment culture. I thought you were speaking in tongues
for a second. I didn't know. I was about to throw holy water at you and say the power of Christ compels you.
Those are also terrorists.
Yes.
And then to really run through the egregious one, the Gadsden flag, this one, listen to this, Revolutionary War imagery. An example of a militiaman during the Revolutionary War is the picture next to it. So don't talk about this nation's founding citizen. That might get you labeled a domestic terrorist.
But we can talk about it to make you feel guilty about your race.
Or images of the Liberty Tree, and even, get this, the Betsy Ross flag. You remember when you were in like 3rd grade and you learned about the first flag? George Washington went to Betsy Ross himself and said, Betsy, can you make us a flag that will unite us as a nation? And she put those 13 little stars in a circle on the blue with 13 stripes on the flag. And that was America's first flag. Remember that story in like 3rd grade?
Yeah.
Remember how,
a little circle.
Remember how like
why is the American flag all fucked up? Why aren't there more? Wait, David, I'll tell you. No. Somebody special? Did somebody special make that flag? TikTok? Anyway,
you'll be maybe surprised to hear that imagery on the FBI domestic terrorist watch list has hung at the end.
Holy shit! There's only 13 flags. We gotta get that motherfucker.
Has hung at the inauguration on every president going back to I don't even know when. So yes, at Biden's inauguration and Trump's inauguration and Obama's and George W. Bush and Clinton's and Bush Sr.
And not to bring up a sore subject.
Betsy Ross was hanging.
Not to bring up a sore subject. But yes, we are definitely the ones you got to watch after. What's the weapons of meme destruction kill count? What's our kill count, please? Yeah, please.
I mean, listen.
There's a known president and a known person that ran for president that have a kill count. David, I'm not going to say which one. Maybe Hoover. I don't know.
Here's what I'm going to say about our kill count. I'm not even a 1 KD on Call of Duty.
If you talk about memes, maybe we've killed a couple of them in our efforts. But other than that, like human kill count, we're
guys.
Good. But you got to watch us. We're the ones that are going to overturn things.
Guys, I am a complete bot on Call of Duty. And I apologize if at any time in the future we offer, as part of following weapons of meme destruction, the ability to play with us on any sort of video games.
I'm never playing that fucking game.
David, hold on a second. Not just that game, but also Rocket League or or FIFA or Madden. I haven't played Madden in years, but
FIFA's broken too. But
get on and play with us. That would be fun thing to do.
Yeah, play with us.
I promise.
That's the most egregious thing that we've ever said with that. Just get on and play with us.
That's definitely going to get sound bit into something later.
Oh, yeah. They were talking to children when they said that. They were talking to video games.
So, listen, whatever the count is, what's that? 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. Of the 12 categories on the militia and violent extremism internal FBI document that the public weren't intended to see, we're batting a good 500.
We're totally that dog in the burning house. We are. It's okay. Everything's okay.
You bat 500 for your MLB career. You're a god.
You're not a legend. You're a god. You've transcended. Like you've levitated on. If you fail 7 out of 10 times as a baseball player, you are going to the Hall of Fame.
So listen. I understand that from a pure marketing standpoint, we are not doing a very good job of making you want to associate with us. We're terrible capitalists right now, but we feel a moral obligation.
We have alcohol and candy at all of our group meetings. If we can sway you at all. And that's not to the 13-year-olds that we just invited to Twitch. That's not, no, consenting adults. Candy and alcohol. I know the candy makes it sound a little weird, but Trust me. Adults like candy too, fuckers.
Okay. David, are you ready to move on to the main part of the episode? Have we had enough fun at the FBI's expense?
Please.
Oh, sorry.
Laughing our way all the way to the south.
Back to the theme I came up with literally in the middle of the first segment is just like we asked about the Alex Jones thing, keep this in mind about the FBI, about who you should be afraid of. Us or a handful of other people.
A couple of fuck dicks with the flags.
Notice who you're told to be mad at versus who you're not. Right? These people, here's the claim. These people are going to destroy the world. Be mad at ANCAPs and Betsy Ross Flag users and Second Amendment people.
Because they question.
Be mad at them. Don't be mad at weapons of mass destruction and, using people as human experiments and Operation Northwoods committing literal false flags and actual murders on American soil.
Things that don't lead to human destruction,
definitely
but
trust them.
Definitely them taking advantage of taking away your rights while they get paid, like insider trading. Them having the hedge notes on what's going to happen within the market before it even reaches the market. Just as simple as that. And with that slight little caveat.
Guys, I don't know if you've noticed in the last few episodes, David is really upset about this insider trading thing.
I go all the way back to that.
He is really upset.
I get so pissed about that $600 check. I'm so mad and I want to get to it.
The best way I can explain this is as angry as I get over the use of nebulous, amorphous principles like equality to mass terraform society in the image and likeness of whoever's in power. As much as that idea pisses me off, David is that upset and more about insider trading. Both things to be very upset about, indeed.
Just saying, I can't afford a fucking studio, but Nancy Pelosi's just got it figured out. That's all I'm saying.
Listen, I give you credit. Yours hits a lot closer to home for a lot of people.
Real close to the studio. I mean home. Studio home.
All right. So with that being said, moving into the main part of this episode, and yeah, we're talking about the Trump raid. And
shocking.
Not necessarily the things that you're supposed to think about the Trump raid, either pro or against. But these themes are running underneath it all the more. And I would posit that they are reaching the level of meme quality that needs to be destroyed. So if you haven't heard, again, crawl out from under your political rock just a little bit. The Trump private residence in Mar-a-Lago, Florida was raided earlier this week with a search warrant signed by a judge. So again, due process has been served, at least in that regard. Showed up to his house and rifled through his stuff and opened a safe and yada, yada, yada. And allegedly, Trump had taken, after he left office, highly classified information that wasn't supposed to be taken. And that's what he's allegedly apparently did. Several items that he took that were matters of national security or had highly classified information. That's what it was for. Now, although that just happened this week, I want to remind you of a June 7th, and I think we talked about at the time, June 7th of this year, a DHS National Terrorism Bulletin was issued. And what that bulletin said was, watch out because of the contentious times going on in America right now, essentially. Watch out for violence to break out between ideological opponents, or watch out for violent extremism from ideological opponents. Now, the classic example of this is Antifa versus MAGA, but it need not be just those groups. They're basically saying anybody who has a strong ideological view in one way or another might be committing violence in the near future. Watch out, right? This is a terrorism bulletin issued by the Department of Homeland Security. And then, come around August, not 2 months later, or right at 2 months later, they set in motion the increased likelihood that there might be violence from their ideological opponents, right, Trump supporters, by setting that whole thing in motion by issuing this FBI raid to give them, or to give some radicals in that group, right, a reason to go after government targets. If you were trying to provoke that type of action and you predicted that and then acted and made the first move 2 months later, you don't think that's suspicious?
Nope.
You don't think that's suspicious?
Nope. You called it. You're like a soothsayer.
You're like Nancy Pelosi in the stock market.
You see it before it happens. Like, yeah, of course it's going to go this way. Well, why is it going to go that way? Don't worry about it. I might have a vote or two that might push in that way, but it's going to go that way. And sure as shit, does it not go that way? Does it not correlate back to Russia and his connections with Russia, even though Hillary Clinton was more closely connected with Russia than he was? Does it not mean that he's being investigated, being indicted by the same party that's had power for 2 years, but can't help but blame him still for all the things that are going wrong in this country? They can't fix it in 2 years, but they're the smarter party. They're saying all the reasons that this whole country is fakakta is still because of this fuckhead that owned the country for 4 years before them. Yet, since they've taken power...
And by the way, substantively changed very little about the way the federal apparatus works. So from a DC insider's perspective, not that radical.
Right. And so when the stock market crashed, when fuel prices went up, and when the cost of living is going up, and everything seems to be imploding around them, when they're holding Trump personally responsible for every person that got a stubbed toe in the fucking United States during his presidential presidency.
Yeah, keep going.
I'm going to go with that. Take that if you want. Now, they can't even be held accountable for gas prices, for their own policies, for them printing money that has led to 8.5 inflation that apparently doesn't exist. Neither does a recession anymore. If we don't call it a recession, if we don't call it inflation, it doesn't exist. So here we are.
Yeah. Because inflation didn't go up or down month over month, 8.5 to 8.5, instead of year over, which is what it's calculated on. What was it at this prices last year? We're still sitting there with 8.5% inflation.
Didn't go down, you dipshit.
Let alone 8.5 points in a month.
We figured it out. It didn't go up, it didn't go down, stay right the same.
So, by the way, think about that. You get an F by running it all the way up to 8.5% in the case. Like, just put it in terms of grades as a kid. So you failed so bad that it's all the way up at 8.5%.
Hey, you're trying to worse.
You're trying to say I'm back down at an A because I didn't get any worse from where I took it to.
I handed in 12% of the assignments that you allowed me.
Even take it on your own terms. There's nothing to brag about, bro. You see how that's worse, right?
No, they don't. They don't want to. They're gonna. Well, inflation doesn't exist anymore. Well, tell that to our studio's fucking income.
Okay, too much of a detour. So, based on the FBI just so happening to predict that, and then setting in motion the events for it to occur. It's kind of odd that they decided to do the raid shortly after, like a couple of days, I think, of Trump saying, yeah, pretty much I'm running again in 2024. And what does it mean if he's convicted on these charges that they searched his home for? It means that he can't run in 2024. He's legally barred from it. So now, listen, I'm not saying that you should take it this way, but I'm saying if you step in the other side's shoes for 5 seconds, you can see how certain actions may not be worth it. Democracy's sacred to you, right? Progressives, leftists, regime people in power that are all aligned against this one man or the 75 million people that voted for him. You're always talking about the sacredness of democracy. Now, if the shoe happened to be on the other foot and you were their position and they put in motion a situation to take away a person off the ballot that you would want to vote for, and they're not doing it on anything other than trumped up charges, no pun intended, you'd be kind of mad about your loss of a chance at democracy, right? That thing that's sacred to you. So if the other side happens to see it like that, whether you think it's justified or not, you can see how the principles that you've been spouting leads to this likely conclusion when you try to take this away from this group of people. So if you're predicting terrorist acts from ideological opponents and you set in motion to piss people off so fundamentally that they no longer believe in fundamental democracy, you're increasing the likelihood that what kind of events are going to occur, or at least what kind of pretext do you now have to accuse somebody of that being their motives?
Okay, Dane, if you're dating a woman, they constantly told you that you don't have to worry about the things that she's doing on the side. If she was texting somebody and be like, oh, he's just a friend from work, you don't have to worry about him. Oh, I'm just going to go out for drinks with my friend from work. Don't worry about him. It's like, oh, I'm just going to sleep over at my friend's house. Don't worry about him. What would you think, Dane?
I think of that meme, like the guy she tells you not to worry about.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then it's you. It's like the little spindly motherfucker. It's like if one party keeps saying that they're trying to protect democracy, but everything that they do just so happens to coincide with the...
Not.
Right. Like, we are all for democracy. Investigate him because he looks like he's going to challenge us in the next upcoming presidential candidate. Like, can we find some, like, him groping somebody's pussy? Or can we find him, like, on a tape getting this? Or can we find him saying that he's definitely fucked everybody? And they found all of it. And then guess what he did? He still beat them. He still beat them at their own game. And now they know that they have to play even dirtier, which is...
If they can take the chess piece off the board,
a federal fucking raid. Coincidence doesn't exist, only the illusion of coincidence. And it definitely doesn't exist when you involve the government. Like, whenever the government is coincidentally involved, I can guarantee you it wasn't a coincidence. It was planned, it was calculated, and they did it on purpose. Now, are we Trumpians? No. Not by any standard of the word. Not by any context of the conception. However, we are still vehemently in defense of the Constitution. And to play with democracy like this, even though, well, whatever. Like, to play with democracy like this and then say that you're defending it, what does that sound like? That doesn't sound like democracy. That sounds like tyranny, doesn't it? A little bit of it. A little bit. You're going to just execute or denigrate your opponents so they don't ever have a voice?
So, listen, and here's the thing. We're not taking the Republican or Trump supporter thing of like, how dare you do this to an ex-president? Because not only is that just bad optics, it looks like you're saying...
Why stop there, Dave?
It looks like you're saying that somebody is above the law, so that's probably not the strongest argument to make. But I get why you're saying it. You're saying it because, well, they're weaponizing the FBI to make political moves to stop somebody from being on the ballot. If that's fundamentally what it's about, that is a political corruption thing. As opposed to just a power thing of the inside elites want him out, and he's not going down without a fight. So whether that's what you think about it or not, we just thought, David, I think we did, we thought, there's this claim going around about this raid that, what did we just say? No person is above the law. Doesn't matter their station in life, doesn't matter the money they have, doesn't matter their gender or their sexual orientation or whatever. We are a nation of laws, not of men, and nobody is above the law. Okay?
So, Dane, where do you want to start? Please.
I know where you want to start.
Which head would you want to roll first? Would it be the person that was just on right before they raided saying, no man is above the law. Everyone is accountable to the law.
Who is this?
This would be Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, and what is she not being FBI investigated for?
I don't know. Well,
or at least SEC, federal investigation of some sort.
That she's out predicting the market. That her husband seems to be ahead of the game even before she votes on a fucking subject that she's made $200 million of profit in within the last 2 months. I'm sorry. You're right. No one is above the law, Nancy. So why don't you hold your feet to the fire yourself?
Listen, FBI. Listen, SEC.
Sorry.
Okay. we're not saying that we know how to do your jobs better than you. However, when there are multiple public Twitter and meme page accounts talking about Nancy Pelosi's trades and pointing out...
I'm sorry, Dan. I'm choking on irony.
David, that's too heavy-handed.
I swallowed the irony. Right. Good. It's down on my gut.
Listen, we're just saying that there are some dots to connect if you chose to look in that particular direction. That's all we're saying. Maybe not. Maybe she's not doing anything wrong.
The normal fucking person can figure it out.
Maybe she and old DUI Paulie, they know exactly how to predict the market.
He can predict the market, but not where the DUI checkpoints are. Nope, not that weekend. They're unpredictable.
Okay. Who else? Let's see. I don't know. I'm just gonna run through the list for sakeness of time. Let's see. The homes of anyone that was in Epstein's logbook, other than Epstein himself, which they did get into his save, and they had a whole bunch of contents, which mysteriously, after the FBI got it, those contents went missing. That's a strange thing.
It's hard.
Something tells me the stuff they got out of Trump's safe aren't going to magically go missing. How about Hunter and Joe Biden? Hunter at bare minimum. They've had control of a laptop for like 2 years.
Says the big guy in it.
With him literally filming himself doing crack with potentially underage hookers. With his dick out and
a pistol. And hookers.
Or at least underage girls. I don't know if there were hookers.
Let's
some maybe, some didn't.
Oh, they were underage? I didn't know that part.
That's
fun.
That's suspected that some might be.
That's fun. Imagine if Trump Jr. did that.
What about Hillary's emails? Now, I know the leftist progressives are laughing. Oh, he's bringing up Hillary's emails. Well, listen, I don't know whether she was guilty or not. All I know is that a phone that had a lot of information on it wound up smashed by a hammer. If Trump had some things in his house smashed up by a hammer, you might have questions.
All I'm going to say is...
keep an open mind. Maybe guilty, maybe not.
Trump's known for fucking a porn star. The Clintons are known for a body count. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
What about, this is just because he's one of my favorite limp-wristed soy boys on Twitter from Congress, Representative Eric Swalwell, who literally slept with, this is not hyperbole, a Chinese spy, was sleeping with her. Good old man Eric Swalwell. Did he potentially give up some national security details to this woman? I don't know. I have no idea.
You scream out some crazy shit when you're in the moment.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I will bet you almost anything. Any international, definitely Australia listeners, if you know this, I'll be very surprised, and you are really plugged in.
Come on, my Aussies.
Yeah, Eric Swalwell, you'll never believe, no FBI investigation.
Oh, that's weird.
He's basically, I didn't say nothing to her, and they're like, oh, okay, good. Just
don't
let it happen again.
You just deposited some biological material inside her, and you didn't say nothing.
What about Obama and Eric Holder for Operation Fast and Furious? You remember that massive FBI investigation?
I love Fast and Furious 1 through 5. It got a little cheesy after 6 and 9.
Yeah.
When they introduced The Rock, I was like, oh, so dumb.
They're trying too hard.
I didn't know The Rock was a government agent, by the way. And Vin Diesel.
Gross. I want to watch those movies even less than I already have not.
That.
Probably just lost half our audience. How about James Clapper lying under oath, which was discovered later, to the U.S. Senate about NSA spying? Basically said, no, we're not collecting metadata on the American citizens. We are not doing that.
And then somebody else came out and said that he definitely was.
Yeah, and then, now that guy's in political asylum over in Russia, of all places.
So when the truth comes out, they're not a fan of that, but the people that lie get to stay here and keep running the country. Interesting.
And by virtue of him being in Russia, both before and since, obviously, the invasion of Ukraine, he's like the worst person ever. If anybody tries to pardon that young man for telling the American people that their government was not only spying on them, but lied to their faces, to their elected representatives in the Senate and said, we're not spying on you, but they were.
The fucked thing is that
no FBI investigation.
They do it with reckless abandon nowadays. They just lie to your face and be like, again, to track back to it, there's no inflation. It didn't inflate anymore in July, so there's no more inflation. There's no recession. You're just having a hard time paying for all the things that you were easily paying for before. There's nothing like that. Go on about your lives, citizens. Don't question us ever.
David, does the name John Brennan mean anything to you?
No. Who is he?
He was the former, was he CIA director? FBI director?
I think it was FBI.
One of those agency directors.
I think CIA was
But
Comey.
I think shortly after the Biden inauguration last year, we did an episode on it. He was the one who came on MSNBC or something and started rattling off a list of extremist groups they were going to send, people out to get. And on that list was he said, even some libertarians. He didn't say anarcho-capitalists. He didn't say Betsy Ross Flag flyers. He didn't say...
Well, it's a good thing I sexually identify as a goddamn
culture,
Democrat.
Mullen lobbers, none of that. He did not single out them. He did libertarians, though. Cast a wide net. How many of those groups do you think consider themselves to be, broadly speaking, libertarian in some sense of the word?
Centrist.
So,
I feel like he was just saying centrist. Whatever doesn't tote the party line. What does that sound like to you, Dan? Does it sound like fascism?
It definitely sounds like there are two groups of citizens in this country, and it ain't the rich and the poor. It's the powerful and the rest of us.
Tyranny? I don't know. I'd hate to say that word.
I'm told we had a democracy and that we, the people, rule this country. That's what I'm told.
And that we can also speak
level
freely.
Of civics education in this country.
And that we can also own guns.
Yeah.
And that we can also do the things in this life that we want to live by ourselves. Just saying.
Yeah. Now, John Brennan, you'll never. Anyway, he said that about libertarians later. Before that, he spied on some Senate staffers, lied about it, and then broke into Senate computers to read emails from whistleblowers. Mr. Brennan.
Womp womp.
Shame on you. Did you get an FBI investigation?
Naughty, little Brennan.
So we bring that list up to say this. Is no man really above the law? Or, as this episode is all about, notice who you're told to be mad at versus who you're not. You're told to be mad at the guy who at least represents, even if he doesn't act all the time, or maybe a little too much, he represents the idea of not going along with what the powerful elite want. That's what Trump represents to a lot of people. And again, all I'm saying is, if you try to say that no man's above the law and that's why we need to go after him, there's at least a couple of people on that list who deserve similar treatment. That's it.
The old saying still adheres true today. I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. You might not agree with Trump. You might hate Trump. But you also have to agree with the fact that the NCAA also stood up for the fact that the Ku Klux Klan had their right to protest, had their right to say what they had to say, because they knew...
The ACLU.
That's what I said.
You said NCAA.
We'll take that back. Want to take it back?
No. Right, I want it in.
Cut that part out.
It sounds funny.
Alphabet soup bullshit is so goddamn complicated.
I swear.
ACW is NCAA. Yes.
No, the ACLU.
That's what I said.
The American Civil Liberties Union.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, he knew what I was saying. That's why we keep him on the team. He keeps me on the team.
It took me a second for it to catch up.
I was like, it didn't sound right, but I'm going to keep running with it. He'll check me. But anyway, the NCAA probably stood up for him too. That's all I'm saying. They've got Alabama in there. Anyway, all I'm saying is it's important to stand up for free speech, even though you might not agree with it, because you never know when the door is going to swing back your way, which is what we always say.
Exactly. And, I would say to those now cheering the FBI, and they are the paragons of truth, and they are our trusted institutions who never are motivated by politics, but only what's in the best interest of the American public to keep them safe from threats and yada, yada, yada. If that's what you believe about the FBI, modern day progressives, I would ask you to just remember back a little bit of history. Right? The FBI's precursor was used by Woodrow Wilson to track down and prosecute and punish protesters of entry into World War I. the same FBI, or that which later became the agency of the FBI, was the one that blackmailed Martin Luther King over his marital infidelities to basically crush him because he was a too powerful leader, unifier of the civil rights movement. How about the killing of Fred Hampton, done at FBI hands? How about anti-Vietnam War protesters, right? Your hippie uncles and stuff. Yeah, FBI was rounding them up and going after them as, communists. Or how about more recent times? Comey is the one who cost Hillary the 2016 election in some theories by saying that, there's a problem with her emails and we're going after her for it. A lot of people blame her loss in 2016 on that. Or how about more recently?
But he wrote a book that fucking hated on Trump, so now he's okay.
He's like the best guy ever.
Great.
And even more recent times than that, we know that you cheer this version of the FBI. Not all those other versions, but you cheer this version. The Gretchen Whitmer plot. Those radical MAGA-ites who wanted to abduct Michigan? Yeah, I think Michigan governor.
How'd that turn out?
Where something like 8 out of 12 of the plotters were FBI plants meant to convince the other 4. Yeah. Now that plot, that was orchestrated by the FBI.
So if you believe in the FBI after all of that, I've got some great real estate available solely to you in the Everglades, right down the road here. You're the only ones that I can sell it to.
It's a giant bridge, and it goes
to nowhere. But Dane, where can they find this podcast to get a little more enlightened within this dark, tumultuous time?
This episode can be found at wmdpodcast.com/107. You can get the podcast itself on any podcast catcher, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. And you can get the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Like, subscribe, share, follow, comment, rate. Everywhere you can. Push us as far and wide as you can. But you can always check the description under these videos for ways to donate to the podcast. And we appreciate your support in advance. And with that being said, David, is next week going to get any better, do you think? You think the world's going to get any better? Or is there more stuff that happened in the last couple we need to take a step back before we go forward?
Are they listening to us right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next week is going to be totally positive. All right, now that they're not listening, no, I think it's going to keep burning. I think it's going to burn more. I think it's going to burn as much as it did before we got the ointment to put on it. And then even still, it's probably still burning more.
Yeah. You're probably right.
I'm glad they were listening to that.
Listen, let's just hope we're all still alive when we're there to see him for episode 108.
Please. And stay safe. More importantly, stay free.